You've just said that when you consent to sex, you are acknowledging the possibility of becoming pregnant and consenting to that. If it's consent to the possibility of pregnancy, then it is consent to pregnancy.
No, it's not, but I do consent to running laps around Daily Wire dumb fucks until Candace Owens responds to me, so here we go. I think this clip and people like Michael Knowles are a direct product of when we let intuition supersede critical thinking. And it's funny because these people are so dogshit at making arguments that he literally almost disproves his own line of thinking while he's talking. Watch.
If I consent to go to the bar, and I know that if I go to the bar, there's a possibility that I get drunk, I am consenting to that hangover that I am going to have, that will involve some suffering and maybe teach me some lessons.
Right there. It's very hard to catch, and he did it very quickly, but pay attention. He says if I go to the bar and I know there's a possibility I could get drunk, that means I'm consenting to the hangover that follows. But one thing, you just completely skipped over the getting drunk part. Going to a bar does not by default mean that you consent to being drunk. The simple fact that bars offer things other than alcohol for you to be able to consume, which we'll get back to why that matters, means that while getting drunk is a foreseeable possibility of going to a bar, that does not mean that you must consent to being drunk the millisecond you step into a bar. In fact, oftentimes when people go out to drink at a bar, they'll carry a friend with them to stay sober so that they can drive everybody home. But if somebody were to run up to that person and stuff a bunch of tequila down their throat, we wouldn't say, you consented to this happening when you came to the bar. And the reason why I think people like him get away with saying stupid shit like this is because the word consent is being woefully misused. Let's take a look at the definition of consent. Permission for something to happen or an agreement to do something. Now, I don't know how successful Michael Knowles is with the ladies, but newsflash, if a woman gives you permission to have sex with them, you are not then permitted by default to give them a child. If you go to the bar, people are not necessarily just permitted to give you alcohol. If you're driving, people aren't permitted to just run into your car because you've consented to the act of driving. One of my main issues with this dumbass line of thinking is that this logic does not hold up in any other context, because accepting the risk that something may happen is a completely different concept than giving permission for that thing to happen. When you drive, you accept the risk that someone may be a drunk driver, you accept the risk that someone may run into you, you accept the risk that your car may spontaneously combust. But if any of those things are to happen to you, you wouldn't be expected to be okay with that, nor did you give the okay for those things to happen. And before you say, well, the main purpose of driving is just transportation, the main purpose of sex is to have a kid. Nope, way ahead of you there, buddy. Now you can believe that the main purpose of sex should be to have a kid all you want, but the fact remains that while historically we've assumed that the reasons why people have sex are few in number, sex is a multifaceted, multi-layered human psychological phenomenon that has a myriad of reasons why people would want to do it. And before you say it's not only a foreseeable outcome, it's a very foreseeable outcome, well then I have to question you, because isn't that completely dependent on the circumstances? Because remember when I told you bars offer more than just alcohol? Well, there are multiple ways to have sex, some of which in which there's a 0% possibility that anyone will get pregnant. There are people who are having sex trying to become pregnant and still can't. If things like birth control and condoms are being used, I think a reasonable person can assume that there's a very low likelihood of anyone becoming pregnant. Well, okay, so if you're somebody who can become pregnant, you know you can, and no condoms or contraceptives are being used, then you consent to pregnancy. And even then, still no! Not only would your original claim need to be walked back so far to only have a shred of making sense, as long as one or both parties involved do not want a pregnancy, that action is not being consented to. Much in the same way I could drive at high speeds in bad weather with no seatbelt on, I still don't consent to dying in a car accident or being badly injured or having a car accident in general. Now, there is room for one to say, well, you shouldn't have been doing that or whatever, you need to be safer, da-da-da. That's a perfectly fine conversation. But if I take the most reckless elements of what you can do while driving and say the act of driving means you're consenting to a car accident, I'd look like a damn idiot. But somehow, we let these dudes get paid millions of dollars and get away with it anyway with viral clips. Because as long as it sounds intuitively correct, we shut our brains off and go, ha ha ha, look at the dumb woman over there. Or at least y'all do that. I don't be doing that because I'm not a damn idiot. So not only is this line of argumentation dangerous, it's just one of their justifications that they can use every time they want to condemn somebody for having an abortion or an unwanted pregnancy. And this is exactly why I'll continue to make you guys look like idiots, because if you consent to saying dumb shit on the internet, I consent to ethering your shit.